Hello everyone, my name is Samer Absurdane. Today I'm going to be teaching you reading comprehension, Q skills for success, level 4, unit 5. Should science influence what we eat? First of all, we have some discussion questions before we move on to the reading section. Question 1. Do you think you have a generally healthy diet? What have you eaten so far today? A possible answer is yes, I think I have a healthy diet. Sometimes I eat sweets, but I don't eat them every day. Today, I ate cereal for breakfast and a salad for lunch. 2. Which is more important to you, eating for pleasure or eating for health, and why? Eating for pleasure is more important to me because food is one of the most enjoyable things in life. And question 3, look at the photos. Would you eat food that was grown in a lab? Why or why not? Yes, for example, because the food looks clean and safe from the photo. Moving on, page 110, activity A. After reviewing the reading, you should answer the following questions. Question 1. Does the author think science should help us choose the foods we eat? No, the author does not think science should help us choose the foods we eat. He thinks common sense should. Question 2. What suggestions for eating well do you think the author will talk about? Answers will vary, as you can see, and the possible answer is that the author may suggest that we use common sense rather than science when deciding what to eat. Looking at the picture in the reading, I think the author believes food labels can be confusing. Important vocabulary to concentrate in the reading, and we'll move on to the vocabulary activity after the reading. Access, approach, benefit, challenge, eliminate, encourage, expert, finding, link, participate, physical, and practical. Moving on to the reading section, eating well, less science, more common sense. Food is life. We eat it to grow, stay healthy, and have the energy to do everyday activities. The food we consume makes all of these things possible, but not all food is created equal. Studies have shown, for example, that children who eat a nutritious breakfast do better in school than those with a poor diet. The well-fed child is able to pay attention longer, remember more, and participate more actively in class. Research has also shown that adults who have a healthy diet perform better on the job and miss fewer days of work. The findings then are clear. Because our food choices affect our health and behavior, we must do more than just eat. We must eat well. For many people today, though, making healthy food choices is not easy. We are surrounded by information telling us what's good for us and what isn't, but usually this information is more confusing than helpful. In fact, different research about the same food often produces contradictory results. Take one example, food studies done on eggs. For years, research showed a link between eating eggs and high cholesterol. To prevent dangerous diseases like cancer or heart disease, people were encouraged to limit or completely eliminate eggs from their diets. However, recent studies now say that eggs are actually good for you, and most people can and even should eat one a day. It's hard to know who to believe. Shopping for food can also be challenging. During a visit to a supermarket, we often need to make many different choices. Should you buy this cereal or that one? Regular or fat-free milk? Tofu or chicken? It's hard to know which to choose, especially when two items are very similar. Many shoppers read product labels to help them decide. Not surprisingly, people are more likely to buy items with the words doctor recommended, low fat, or all natural on them. But are these foods really better for you? Probably not. Indeed, many food labels are often misleading. For instance, because doctors sometimes recommend that people eat yogurt for their digestion, a yogurt maker might then use the label doctor recommended so that you buy their product. In reality, though, their specific yogurt isn't preferred by doctors, but shoppers may think it is because of the food label. So, how do we make healthy choices? Michael Pollan is a professor at the University of California, Berkeley, who has written many books about eating well, including the bestseller In Defense of Food. In his opinion, our foods need to be defended against needless complications from nutrition science and from the food industry. According to Pollan, we need to stop reading labels and listening to the so-called scientific experts. Instead, he offers some simple yet practical tips for eating well and staying healthy. Tip 1. Eat foods, not too much, mostly plants. In other words, says Pollan, only eat real food or things your grandparents would recognize as food. Make fruit and vegetables your main source of food and limit your meat intake. And when you eat, says Pollan, do not do so in moderation. He quotes the Okinawan people of Japan who have an expression, hara hachibu, eat until you are 80% full. Tip 2. Get out of the supermarket whenever possible. Shopping for meat or dairy products at the market is probably okay, but a supermarket is also full of items like instant noodles, diet sodas, and similar products, the ones that aren't good for us. Instead, try to shop at a farmer's market or a local store when you can. The food there is fresher and healthier. Tip 3. Pollan says that eating is not only about physical health and nutrition. Food is also about pleasure, about community and family. In other words, choosing the right food to eat is only the first step. Learning how to cook and sharing a meal with others are also important parts of eating well and being healthy. Thinking like Michael Pollan's is challenging the scientific approach to eating. It is also helping people to reconnect with food traditions. In cities around the world, for example, urban gardens, common since ancient times, they are becoming popular again. On small pieces of land, neighbors are working together to grow fruit and vegetables. What are the benefits of these gardens? For starters, better nutrition for one thing. People have access to more fresh fruit and vegetables, especially poorer people who are less likely to spend money on these items. The food also costs less than it would be in a supermarket where it was probably driven in from farms or shipped in from another country. There are other benefits too. Working together in the garden helps people to exercise. It also promotes community and sharing. Urban gardens have also been used to teach children about food production and healthy eating. At the Edible Schoolyard, a program at a public school in the US, children learn how to plant and harvest fruit and vegetables. They also learn how to clean and prepare them for meals, a skill that they will be able to use all their lives. And best of all, because the children want to eat the things they have grown, they learn to develop healthy eating habits. Ultimately, making healthy food choices and eating well do not have to be difficult. Doing simple things, changing your shopping habits, learning to cook, planting a garden, and limiting your intake of certain foods can result in a better diet and a healthier you. Bon appetit. Alright, moving on to the vocabulary section, activity B. 1. If you want to lose weight, you should eliminate junk food from your diet. 2. Dr. Adosari is a medical expert who specializes in women's health and nutrition. 3. One benefit of a vegetarian diet is that you'll probably live longer. 4. Is there a link between taking vitamins and better health? 5. Millions of people do not have access to clean drinking water. What can we do about this problem? 6. Do you want to participate in our school's health study? You only have to answer a few questions. 7. One finding from the study is that organic food is not always better for you. 8. You can encourage children to eat vegetables by eating more of them yourself. 9. Eating a large meal before bed is very practical. You won't be able to sleep. Very practical. 10. To quit smoking, Thamer tried chewing gum and exercising, but neither approach has worked. 11. My dad had a physical exam today and the doctor says he's in great health. And 12. For years, people thought eating chocolate was bad for your skin, but recent studies challenge that belief. Research now says chocolate is good for you. Moving on, page 114, Activity D. Read the statements. Would the author of the magazine article agree with them? Write Y, yes, or N, no. Discuss your answers with a partner. So, 1. Scientific research about diet and health usually gives us helpful information. Now, the author from the reading does not agree with this statement, so the answer is N, no. 2. Reading food labels has made us better informed, healthier consumers. Also, no. 3. We don't need experts to tell us what to eat. Yes. 4. A lot of food found in a supermarket is not real food. Yes. 5. The purpose of eating is mainly for health and nutrition. Yes. 6. An urban garden is an old tradition that works well in modern cities. Yes. 7. Making healthy food choices is hard. The answer is yes. The author would agree with that statement. Moving on to activity E. Circle the correct answer. 1. According to the reading, which question is difficult for many people to answer today? The answer is C. Which are the healthiest foods to eat? 2. In paragraph 2, the studies on eggs are an example of A. Confusing results from the scientific community. 3. Food labels that read low fat or all natural, B, are mainly used to sell a product. 4. Which piece of advice would Michael Pollan probably agree with? B. Selecting healthy food and learning how to cook it are both important. 5. At the edible schoolyard in the US, what are children not learning to do? C. Read and understand nutrition labels. Moving on to page 115. Now in activity F, from paragraph 8, you need to list 4 benefits of having an urban garden. Here are the benefits. 1. People are healthier. They have access to more fresh fruit and vegetables, especially poor people. Benefit 2. The food costs less than it would in a supermarket. The third benefit, people get exercise. And benefit 4, working together in the garden promotes community and sharing. In activity G, complete the cause and effect chart on the benefits of an urban garden. As you can see in the table, the first column lists the causes, the second column lists the effects or the benefits. So 1, access to more fresh fruits and vegetables. The effect is better nutrition. 2, food doesn't have to be brought to supermarkets. The effect or benefit is that the costs are less. 3, working in a garden, it helps promote exercise. 4, working together, community and sharing. 5, participating in the edible schoolyard program. The effect or benefit of that is learning about food production and healthy eating. Moving on to page 116, reading skill, recognizing bias. Now what is bias? Bias means a strong feeling for or against something. Writers may present information in ways that support their biases in order to influence a reader's opinion. It is important to recognize a writer's bias in order to better evaluate his or her arguments and ideas. Look at these examples from reading 1. They show some techniques that writers use to influence readers. For example 1, choosing descriptive language and vocabulary that states or implies the author's bias. It's not necessarily supported with facts like the food we consume makes all of these things possible, but, and here, not all food is created equal. It's descriptive language that states or implies the author's opinion. Poland offers some simple yet practical tips for eating well and staying healthy. The second technique is expressing direct criticism of the opposing point of view. For example, our foods need to be defended against needless complications from nutrition science and from the food industry. The third technique is using adverbs like in fact, in reality, and indeed to emphasize particular points. In fact, different research about the same food often produces contradictory results. And the last technique, claiming that the reader shares the author's bias by using pronouns like we and our. For example, because our food choices affect our health and behavior, we must do more than just eat. We must eat well. So, in activity E, you need to read the sentences, look at the words in bold, and write the number of the technique used from the reading skill box. Is it technique 1, 2, 3, or 4? And more than one technique is possible. A. We are surrounded by information telling us what's good for us and what isn't. But usually this information is more confusing than helpful, which is techniques number 2 and 4. B. Shopping for food can also be challenging. Here the author used technique number 1. C. Indeed, many food labels are often misleading. Techniques number 2 and 3. D. In reality, though their specific yogurt isn't preferred by doctors, but shoppers may think it is because of the food label. And this is technique number 3. E. So how do we make healthy choices? Technique number 4. F. According to Poland, we need to stop reading labels and listening to the so-called scientific experts. Techniques number 2 and 4. G. A supermarket is also full of items like instant noodles, diet sodas, and similar products, the ones that aren't good for us. Techniques number 2 and 4. And finally, H. The food at a farmer's market or a local store is fresher and healthier, which is technique number 1. Activity B. These statements each contain an example of bias. Underline the language that shows bias for each sentence. Write the number of the technique used from the reading skill box. So in addition to underlining the language, you need to write the technique number. A. You may have read that my colleagues do not agree with me on this topic, but let me make this clear. My colleagues have ignored the latest research data. Now, the underlined part is what shows the author's bias, and it's technique number 2. B. Not all fats are bad for you. In reality, some are very good for you. In reality, it's technique 3. C. Nutrition advice can sometimes be difficult to understand. Technique 1. D. We are all concerned about our weight getting out of control, so let's do something about it. Technique 4. E. Research into nutrition has been going on for decades, but in fact, much is still unknown about foods as simple as the carrot. 3. And F. You and I both know that candy isn't good for your teeth, so why do we continue to eat it? Technique 4. G. Everyone wants to eat healthy. Many food manufacturers, however, are more interested in keeping costs down than in using healthy ingredients. Technique 2. And finally, H. You won't believe how delicious the cheesecake is. It is an absolute dream, which is technique number 1. Reading 2, Anatomy of a Nutrition Trend. Now, in Activity A, you need to preview the article and check the source of information about nutrition you think is the most common. We will skip that. Move on to the important vocabulary, which we will do in activity after the reading. Contribution, currently, major, milestone, modify, preliminary, shift, sink in, source, and stable. Moving on to the reading section, Anatomy of a Nutrition Trend. Have you ever wondered how nutrition trends get started? Why did fat-free become all the rage in the 1990s? Why is low carb currently the in thing? Consumers complain that health advisors keep changing their minds. On the other hand, consumers also change their priorities when it comes to the nutrition topics they are interested in. Are trends really that hard to understand? Trend starters. Felicia Botch, a nutrition consultant, believes that there are really two different kinds of trends. The first kind develops from a groundswell of interest. It can come from a new book or a study that presents a new theory. Scientific research often contributes to new nutrition trends. These kinds of trends are usually promoted by the media and continue until the public loses interest. The second kind of the trend occurs when a major milestone happens, when there is a food recall or people die from a food-related disease. People stop and think. A milestone can either start a trend or support other trends that are already out there. Trends that arise from groundswells are more common than those that arise from major milestones. Trend influencers. Consumers' desires and needs depend on their beliefs and attitudes. Here are just a few of the many factors that affect public opinion. Beliefs about what keeps us healthy and how we get sick. Attitudes about our ability to control our health and eating habits. Reactions to hearing or reading news stories and reading books. Talking with friends and family members about the latest nutrition trend. Consumer surveys have shown that the public depends on the media for most of their information about health and nutrition. Of course, people ask their healthcare providers for information as well. According to the Shopping for Health survey from the Food Marketing Institute, FMI, most people rely primarily on magazines, 75%, and books, 72%. After that, they turn to healthcare professionals, 63%, friends or family, 58%, newspapers, 51%, and television, 49%. 25% turn to nutritionists, which can be seen in this diagram where people get their information about health and nutrition. Linda Gilbert, president of Health Focus International in Atlanta, Georgia, is a market researcher who specializes in health and nutrition trends. Gilbert believes that the media have a powerful influence on trends, but that there is another crucial factor, which is repetition. Hearing the same things from a number of sources is key. It's not just the media that affects trends. Sources like friends and families, nurses, and even coffee shop conversation remind consumers that I've heard that before. When it comes to beliefs about nutrition and health, repetition is so important. You have to be exposed to ideas for a while before the message sinks in. Felicia Botch agrees that the media influence what people hear and read about nutrition and health. People get their information from the media, and the media often depend on a few top sources. Like reporters tend to feed off each other. A newspaper article can lead to a TV story or magazine article and vice versa. The Food Marketing Institute, FMI, in Washington, D.C. has studied consumer attitudes about nutrition and health for the last 20 years. FMI survey data shows that the percentage of consumers reporting that they are very concerned about the nutritional content of what they eat was relatively stable from the mid-1980s through the mid-90s. Since then, this percentage has fallen a bit. Some trend watchers think the drop in concern about nutrition is partly due to public opinion about health advisors. Felicia Botch explains during the period from 1980 until 1995, we had to keep modifying our positions about fats, and we learned more about the relationship between dietary fat and health. First, we had people follow no cholesterol diets. Then it was low fat diets. After that, it became low saturated fats. Now we're talking about low trans fat diets. I think this changing advice has had an impact on people just giving up. In defense of nutritionists, Butch adds, there was so much information coming out at once, no wonder the public was confused. It's hard to have people understand that science is an ongoing process. Where do we go from here? Trends in nutrition come and go. Some trends become cultural norms because everyone is doing it. Others die because different needs and interests eclipse them. According to data from a health-focused international survey, consumers are now very interested in the health benefits that certain foods may provide. The media's interest in nutrition has also shifted more toward the subject of functional foods, meaning foods that claim to have specific health benefits. The International Food Information Council, IFIC, recently conducted a media analysis that offered some interesting results. News stories about vitamin and mineral intake, antioxidants, and specific functional foods accounted for 12% of all media discussions about diet, nutrition, and food safety. The other topics reported on most often were biotechnology, 12%, disease prevention, 9%, and foodborne illness, 8%. Also, news stories about fat have shifted from a focus on low-fat foods to how certain types of fat, such as omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, can have health benefits. Certainly, nutrition is still a hot topic among consumers, even though they may be less concerned now than they were in the 1990s. Nutrition trends, like all trends, change with time. They depend on consumers' needs and interests, scientific reports, media coverage of issues, and sometimes major events. For most of us, watching trends is easier than predicting them. Studying them can be a fascinating way to look at our society and culture. Moving on to activity B, complete the sentences with the vocabulary from reading 2. The discovery of vitamins in the early 20th century was a huge milestone in the history of nutritional science. People quickly accepted the idea that taking vitamin pills could contribute to a healthy lifestyle. It is now becoming clear, however, that this may not always be true. Currently, research suggests that not all the effects of vitamins are positive, although they are primarily very good for you. Certain vitamins can be harmful in large quantities. Reports about the problems related to vitamins may shift from one vitamin to another depending on the source of your information. It is now generally agreed, however, that people who take large amounts of vitamins A and D should modify their habits. Too much of these vitamins can cause major health problems. Interestingly, the amount of vitamin sales over the past decade has been stable, and may actually be increasing. While the belief in the positive effects of vitamins happen quickly, the understanding that vitamins can be harmful still needs to sink in. Moving on to activity D, answer these questions. Question 1. What can cause a groundswell of interest in a trend, according to Felicia Botch? The answer is a new book or new scientific research. Question 2. What kinds of milestones can begin a trend? A food recall or when people die from a food-related disease. 3. What factors affect beliefs and attitudes about nutrition and health? Give 2 examples. The answer: 2 of the following: beliefs about what keeps us healthy, attitudes about our ability to control our health reactions to hearing stories and reading books, talking with friends and family, any of these reasons. Question 4, or factors. Question 4, where do people get most of their information about health and nutrition? The answer is from the media and primarily from magazines. Question 5, what does Linda Gilbert say in the crucial factor that influences trends? It is repetition, which means hearing the same thing from a number of sources. Last question, what trend are consumers currently interested in? The answer is the health benefits that certain foods may provide, or what we may call functional foods. Moving on to the next activity, Activity E. Read the statements about nutrition trends and check the correct source for each statement. Was it Felicia Butch or Linda Gilbert, FMI or IFIC? 1. Food-related illnesses can influence people's opinions about nutrition, Felicia Butch. 2. People are less interested in nutrition now than they used to be, FMI. 3. To be influenced by a trend, you have to get the same information in several different ways, Linda Gilbert. 4. Most people get their health information from magazines fast, FMI. 5. Our ideas about nutrition can be influenced by what ordinary people say, Linda Gilbert. 6. People were given too much information about food, about fats all at once, Felicia Butch. 7. Different media often rely on each other for stories about nutrition, which is Felicia Butch. So number 6, Felicia Butch, and number 7 is also Felicia Butch. Moving on. Activity F, write true or false. Then correct each false statement to make it true. 1. Felicia Butch believes that there is only one kind of trend. False. She believes that there are 2 kinds of trends. 2. One factor that affects public opinion is how we react to news stories and books. True. 3. People turn to their healthcare providers for most of their information about health and nutrition. False. People depend on the media for most of their information. 4. From the mid-1980s through the mid-1990s, the percentage of consumers reporting that they were very concerned about the nutritional content of the food they ate fell slightly. False. The percentage of consumers was relatively stable. 5. According to IFIC, the topics of disease prevention and foodborne illnesses account for most of the media discussions about diet, nutrition, and food safety, which is false. News stories about vitamin and mineral intake, antioxidants, and specific functional foods accounted for most of the media discussions. Moving on to Activity G. Answer these questions about statements in the article. Question 1. Why do you think that trends that arise from groundswells are more common than those that arise from major milestones, which is in paragraph 2? And the answer is, maybe groundswells are more common because major milestones don't happen very often. Research happens all the time, but recalls don't. Question 2. According to the article, people get more information about health and nutrition from books and magazines than from television. Give a possible explanation for this from paragraph 4. And the answer is, if people are interested in health and nutrition, they can seek out books and magazines on the topic. However, with TV, they have to wait for a program to air. 3. What does Felicia Butch mean when she says reporters tend to feed off each other, from paragraph 6? She means that reporters use other reporters' news instead of finding new information. So even though many reporters tell us about a topic, it all stems or comes from the same source. 4. What does Felicia Butch mean by science is an ongoing process, from paragraph 8? She means that science does not end. There is always something else to find out about. And question 5. Why do you think that for most of us watching trends is easier than predicting them? From paragraph 11. The answer is, it is easier to observe the present than to guess what will happen in the future. Moving on to page 124, vocabulary skill, cause and effect collocations. Many different collocations with prepositions are used to express cause and effect. Recognizing these phrases will help you understand how these ideas are related. Some collocations are used when the cause is the subject of the sentence. For example, bring about, contribute to, lead to, result in, be a factor or factors, and be responsible for. These are examples of collocations when they're used and the cause is the subject of the sentence. Like limiting your intake of certain foods, this is the cause, can result in the collocation a better diet and a healthier you. Effect. Cause, effect. Example 2. Scientific research often contributes to new nutrition trends. Some collocations are used when the effect is the subject of the sentence, like arise from, develop from, stem from, be due to, be brought about by, and be caused by. So these collocations are used when the effect is the subject of the sentence. So the first kind of trend develops from a ground rule of interest. As you can see, here the effect is the subject of the sentence, and we use the collocation develops from, and this is the cause, which is the object of the sentence. The second example, the drop in concern about nutrition is due to public opinion about health advisors. Effect, cause, and the effect is the subject of the sentence. Moving on to activity A. What you need to do here, in these sentences, the cause is the subject. Use a different collocation from the vocabulary skill box to complete each sentence and use the correct tense. So, mind the tense of the sentence. Number 1, tiredness and stress are responsible for many traffic accidents. 2, greenhouse gases lead to global warming. 3, a good diet contributes to excellent health. 4, poverty is a factor in much of the crime in our society. 5, Sultan's carelessness brought about his injury. And 6, the poor economy resulted in the failure of the company last year. As you can see, all these underlined collocations are used when the cause is the subject of the sentence from the first part of the vocabulary skill box. In activity B, here in the following sentences, the effect is the subject. So use a different collocation from the vocabulary skill box from the second half to complete each sentence. 1. Jumana's good health is due to her excellent eating habits. 2. The hotel fire was caused by an electrical problem. 3. My fight with my brother arose from a misunderstanding. As you can see, in sentence 2 and 3 we use the past tense. 4. The high price of gas stems from a petroleum shortage. 5. Musa's love of history developed from a childhood trip to the museum. And 6. The success of the book came from action-packed plot. Alright everyone, that's it for Unit 5. And a homework for you is exercise C. This will be your homework for next week. What you need to do here, You either work with a partner or alone, and you need to write 6 cause and effect sentences of your own, 3 with the cause as the subject and 3 with the effect as the subject. You can follow these examples. For example, when you use the cause as a subject, smoking can bring about many health problems, or eating more fruits and vegetables can lead to a stronger immune system. And sentences where the effect is used as the subject, examples, people's concern about their diet can stem from a desire to live longer. And 2, people's confusion about what to eat may be due to the fact that scientists advise changes often. That's it, everybody. Thank you for listening and stay safe.